Welcome into another episode of the Laser Bros podcast. We are your hosts, Logan and Luke Lazarchik. Monday, May 20th, 2024. We weren't able to record last week, so this week we'll try to get two episodes in. This will be the first of possibly two episodes this week. Interesting round, semifinal round of the NBA playoffs. I know Luke is pretty upset about how the game transpired last night. I tried to make some jokes at him, and he got pretty defensive, so I knew that I struck some nerves. But really good series, and today's show is pretty symbolic of that because this is the first time in a while that Luke has recorded outside of his house at Manhattan because he's now moved back to Kansas City. And like his non-existent Jokic jersey behind him, Jokic is also out of the playoffs, so it's pretty symbolic.
Okay.
Jokic jersey being behind Luke.
I see how it is. That's what we're doing. I see. Well, you can just hop on the Anthony Edwards bandwagon like everyone else, man.
I see. We'll get to that, but I've been on that bandwagon before the series started. But anywho, before Lou gets even more annoyed, let's start with the episode today, and we're going to talk about what transpired in the Eastern Conference playoffs and the Western Conference playoffs, in addition to previewing each of the Eastern Conference Finals and Western Conference Finals matchups. So let's start with the first Game 7, and there were two Game 7s yesterday, which was pretty cool. First Game 7 yesterday, Pacers, Knicks. Knicks came into the game pretty beat up. Josh Hart and OG were announced that they were each going to play, and it seemed like it seems like they were trying to test the water and see if he could actually go prolonged minutes. He only played about 4 or 5 minutes in this one.
Yeah.
He didn't really play that much. Definitely didn't look healthy. Hamstring was probably still bugging him. Josh Hart was playing with a strained abdominal injury. And then Jalen Brunson breaks his hand mid-third quarter. So it was pretty much a microcosm of the Knicks season and the series. What were your main takeaways? And Haliburton was great yesterday. He was probably the key to that game.
I think the Knicks, everyone knows that their team Brunson even broke his hand at the end. They died off. And you can always do the healthy thing in playoffs, but all things healthy, I think we know the Knicks would have won this series. I think that's known. But, you still got to give credit to the Pacers to come out. They shoot the highest percentage in a single playoff game in NBA history. So, if you're the Knicks, you're dealing with injuries, and then, they're just making everything. Haliburton dribbling around, then, off-bounce threes, everyone, Nesmith, TJ McConnell, Siakam played well. So I think this was good for the Pacers. I think it was good, but I think it's still we all know what happened. And I think the Knicks still have to look at this season as a positive. And just watching these two teams, I still feel you just know it's they're going up against the Celtics. And with or without Porzingis, you're still taking the Celtics by a wide margin, I feel like.
Yeah, and we'll preview that matchup here shortly. But, I don't really see the Pacers. They may get a game. I don't see them winning 2 games in the series. They may get 1 game in the series. But back to this game that happened yesterday. For the Pacers, I was impressed by them because they were down 3-2. They were being called out for their physicality, being soft, especially from Knicks players. And they responded. And you have to commend that response and the way that they outplay the Knicks. And for the most part, Game 6 and 7, they outplay the Knicks, regardless of what the Knicks are dealing with injury-wise. Pacers came out to play both games. They're undefeated at home during this postseason. And yesterday, I think they started the game out 22 of 27.
It was nuts. It was nuts.
And they finished the game shooting 67% from the field, which is a NBA postseason record. So you have to give them credit for that. The Knicks, it was an impressive season, but at the same time, I'm getting a vibe that may be a one-hit wonder. Now, I think they could make some moves this offseason, and I would like to see them go get a Paul George or another wing defender. There's a lot of players out on the market that could be available via free agency and trade. I would like to see him get Paul George. the way that they won these games, though, it was every game was not ugly, but towards the end of the game, it was a one-possession game, paying to the final 3 minutes of the game. Like each of their wins, especially this Pacers series was the games they won were very close games. I just don't know if that's sustainable. And Tom Thibodeau has these players playing extensive minutes. That's why you saw some of these injuries, like Josh Hart injury and the OG Anunoby injury, were both because they were playing.
I mean, you could say that theoretically, but
like the Jalen Brunson injury is unlucky. Mitchell Robinson injury is unlucky. Like there's also a lot of
Bogdanovich was unlucky. He wasn't playing a ton. I mean, they got a lot of bad luck, and I think I saw something that they're going to try to get a star. And now, what type? Paul George, I feel like, is the obvious one. Maybe in some world where Kevin Durant is available, but part of me just like, I don't want someone who's going to like change the culture, just fit in. And that's why I feel like the obvious Mikal Bridges, Villanova guys, and I'm all for that. I think he's another scorer. I mean, he wasn't as good this year as last year, but he wouldn't be the main guy. It'd be Brunson. And that could be trading Randall. It's really interesting because I thought Randall was good. I think Randall was good this year, I thought.
I think Mikal Bridges I don't think he's enough. Like Jalen Brunson, I think they're heavily dependent on him at times to run the offense. If you can get a Paul George, who at times can alleviate the pressure off of Brunson can just take a few possessions off while Paul George runs the offense. That Mikal Bridges doesn't really move the needle for me enough. I think you have to get Paul George. I've heard people say Brandon Ingram. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Brandon Ingram. I think he's very talented, but
I do think this would be a nice place for him, though.
I think so too, because the thing is, he wouldn't be a leader on this team, and the culture kind of help him fit in and just be a scorer on the team. But I think Paul George is, especially you're in New York, get a star. Paul George, I think, is the most obvious answer.
I mean, but you still have to see what happens. That probably have to be a sign and trade. So you'd have to get the Clippers to do it. You have to get Paul George. He first has to opt out, and I think the Clippers can offer him more than anyone else. So they need someone. It's just interesting, like Randall or like Brandon Ingram.
I think Randall and Bogdanovich will be the two pieces that would be moved.
I think Bogdanovich will be moved too, but like if you want Brandon Ingram, let's say they like him. Let's say they think they can unlock how he was playing like a year ago. Pelicans aren't going to take Randall, so you got to 3-team that. And like, I think what people really aren't talking about, like, what's the fit for Randall? Where should he go? I don't really know. Like, if you look through the teams,
I mean, could OKC be a fit? I don't know. I'm just throwing that.
I don't think that's terrible. I don't think that's bad. But is he good enough rebounding?
I mean, he's just another player that has size, though. Like they're lacking. They just need like physicality and.
I mean, let's look at Randall's numbers here. What did he average this season? He averaged 9.2 rebounds. That's pretty good, and they can shoot.
Stretch the floor,
He could shoot somewhat, and then he has the floor stretched out for him. I mean,
maybe you send Giddey to Pelicans and then Brandon Ingram to the Knicks.
That'd be interesting, but Giddey can't shoot and Zion can't shoot. You may have to get a little creative. I
think OKC needs not OKC. The Pelicans need, I think, a point guard. Like McCollum's a scorer, but they don't.
Yeah, but you need a shoot. Like if Giddey can't shoot, and Zion's not much of a shooter, and then you're in a real pickle there. So I just don't know. I don't think would be terrible. The Hawks, if they decide to keep Young and Murray, I don't think Randall's bad.
I think they're trading one of two.
I still don't know though because they don't have their own pick next year, and so unless you trade one of them to the Spurs and get your pick back, the Atlanta situation is very interesting. But I just threw that out there. I mean, Dallas just wanted a third guy, but I think they have something. I
don't think
they have something good going on. Dallas wouldn't be bad, but they got good stuff going on.
Yeah, but back to the Knicks, I think if they can keep Brunson, DiVincenzo, and Josh Hart together and just add, that's why Paul George I think makes a ton of sense because I know we're talking about sign and trade, but he is a free agent now. I know maybe it doesn't work.
Well, no, he's a player option. He's a player option.
Okay, but I mean, I just think you can trade Randall and Bogdanovich and maybe a pick or maybe another player as well and get Paul George. I think it's the most obvious solution in addition to this team.
The also thing
I don't
is
think
you have
Paul
to
George can
sign.
come in and like change.
Yeah, no,
like
he's
going to come.
fine.
Yeah, I think that's probably my number one.
But here's the thing too, though. You have to. How much are they going to give OG? They're going to sign OG. Like you traded that stuff, you're going to sign him. Are they going to give him like 40 mil? I remember that. If I'm the Knicks fan, I'm hoping like, dude, just you don't need 40 mil. I mean, you're really good defensive and shot well and played well, but you need to hope you don't overpay him.
Yeah, they'll sign him. I don't know. 40 seems a bit rich. I don't know if that's exactly.
Well, I remember that's what they were saying way back when he got traded. They could get 40. I don't know.
They need a player though. I think if they want to compete for the East, they're gonna have to add a star level player. I don't think
if they had Randall and Mitchell Robinson, let's just say those two were healthy. Brunson never breaks his hand. This Knicks Celtics series, I think, goes to 6 or 7. If you just told me they had Randall and Mitchell Robinson, especially without Porzingis, I think it'd go 6 or 7. So there's a world where you just say, do you know what? Randall got hurt. Let's run it back, sign OG, and then like Miles McBride coming off the bench, or Chua can. I mean, you could maybe trade Bogdanovich for a better piece. I think there's a chance they run it back with Randall.
All right, let's move on to the second game, and this was the marquee matchup of the day. Didn't play out how Luke wanted to play out.
You're a jerk. What is that? What is that? Did you see that? Did you come up with that?
No, I came up with this.
That's pretty solid, but who the hell you think you are? I'm just here looking at players, looking Knicks trades, and you're just, oh, no Jokic. Okay, just start your little monologue-y thing. Just go.
Well, Minnesota last night overcame a 15-point halftime deficit, beat the Nuggets. Nuggets were actually up by 20 at one point, and it really felt at that point in the game that the Nuggets would pull away. And we were actually watching this game together with one of our buddies as well, and I kept trying to tell Luke, Nuggets are they're laying the Timberwolves hanging around. And they're laying them hanging around. Luke's like, they'll figure it out. I'm like, the longer you keep this team hanging around, they're going to figure it out. Like, the Timberwolves will figure it out. And that's exactly what they did. Anthony Edwards he did not play well at all. But there were spots in the second half where
I don't think you can say that. It's not that he didn't play well at all. He didn't shoot well. He did a lot of things well.
He had a big impact on the game, and it doesn't show in the stats. Now, he did struggle from the field, but I think an underrated feature of his game is actually his passing ability and recognizing that he doesn't always have to score the points for the team. He realizes that he's going to get doubled and that player's going to be open. You even heard that in some of the mic'd up stuff. So for a 22-year-old to be that mature and, realize that he doesn't always have to be the go-to option at times. He can rely on his teammates. That's really why Minnesota, I think, won the series and pulled this game out.
I mean, yeah, it was a close series. I mean, but these teams were very evenly matched. But in the end, I mean, Minnesota, in the second half, they just played better. I mean, Denver no one could make a shot outside of Jokic or Murray, and they weren't fantastic in the second. Michael Porter didn't have a good series. He had a good game 1 and 3. Besides that, not good shooting. Aaron Gordon, he had those couple games, and then his scoring stopped. KCP was never really – he never did too much except for game 5. In the Nuggets' depth, in the end, it came to bite them. I mean, Jokic could have been better. Jamal Murray was pretty good.
If you told me Jamal and Jokic combined for 69 points,
yeah,
I probably think that the supporting cast scores enough where they probably win that game. I believe the highest score outside of Jokic and Jamal, I believe, was it Michael Porter with 7?
Maybe.
I know the rest of the supporting cast only had single digits. Nobody reached double digits. And that's probably the most disappointing part was just those players did not step up. And we were watching a game together, and the shot that Rudy Gobert hit, the fadeaway over Jokic.
Oh, stupid! And that's when I knew
If you
him.
guys could
When Mike,
see Luke's reaction, I love watching sports with Luke when I'm rooting for the opposite team, and it's just going terrible for Luke. It's one of the most entertaining.
oh wow, that's quite the statement. Oh, shocker. I mean, yeah, it was not cool. It was not cool. When Mike Conley hit that stupid 3, I was like, oh, one more stupid shot, and it's just destiny. And then Gobert has the ball and a shot clock. I think is a 2 or 3 point game. And in my head, I'm like,
it was 77-75.
Yeah, in my head, I'm like, he's gonna make this.
I didn't realize it was him when we were watching the game. I thought it was Karl-Anthony Towns. I didn't know.
I saw what was happening. I saw it. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's gonna make this, and game's over. Even I think Cat played great. I think that's another thing I'll get. But yeah, when he made that, but Cat never had like the 30-point game.
And they're still very quiet. Like
sometimes when you watch him, I mean, he had 23 and 12. He played good defense on Jokic. Like sometimes when you watch him, you're just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, do you know how to play basketball? Did you just start? But that was a big game for him. I think a big moment. I think that at this point, we've talked about, oh, what if they trade Towns? You're not trading Towns. I don't think you're going to, even if you want to trade Gobert, you're not trading Gobert. So this is your team for years. And if Towns can have moments where he shows up like that, and then you have all these other guys, Mike Conley's great to have. McDaniels was huge. Walker produces. Anderson. I mean, they got. I think McDaniels
may have been the reason they won Game 6 and 7 because he had 21 in Game 6 and 23 last night.
I mean, Game 6 they're just gonna win. But yeah, last games. I mean, he has 20 or 44 points on 15 of 20.
That's the thing.
With 3 blocks and 3 steals,
up like that, you're gonna because you know what you're gonna get from your top guys. But if your if your role players can, especially a guy who's not that great offensively, but really good defensively. Like the thing with Minnesota is, that they're gonna play defense well, and defense is much more just in general. Defense is much more consistent than offense. There's like offense isn't gonna be there every night for every team, but if you can play defense, they can keep you in the game. That's what the Timberwolves did yesterday. They kept themselves in the game, especially in that third quarter. They came up with timely stops over and over again. And Jokic struggled from 3 most of his postseason, which I thought at some point I thought he was going to make them pay by just leaving him open. I thought
he hit a couple late, but they couldn't. He hit a couple late.
But he started 0 of 8. That's like throughout the game, he just did not make them pay from deep.
Yeah, it was weird. That was odd. I mean, I think the big thing. I mean, Jokic mentioned it. Mike Conley. Like, I think he's so much more important to this team than
we saw in Game 5.
In Game 1, he had the highest plus-minus for Minnesota. He's never going to have stats, but he probably just sets everything up. I mean, I know you're mentioning Garland thing. Like, what if they go get Garland? It's like, it may be fine. They're probably fine with Mike Conley, even though he's older. So, but, I mean, flipping it, Minnesota – I think, and everyone wants Minnesota to win at this point. But flipping it to Denver, I think that the problem is, so you have Michael Porter who could score and Aaron Gordon who could score. But I wouldn't consider either of those 3-level scorers where you're mid-range, 3-point, going to the lane. That's probably what you want to see out of Michael Porter because when he's just limited to his catch and shoot, which maybe there's more to his game that he hasn't been able to fully develop because of his role. But maybe that's something that you need to work with him. Like, hey, next year you need to score like
a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean they won a title.
So, I know, but I'm saying,
and he had good moments. He had really good moments, but then he just in the end he kind of fell off. And maybe you need to adapt. You need to adapt his role to where he's not just catch and shoot, or just easy opportunity for a drive. Maybe that's their move. Adapt. And I know that. They had 3 picks this past draft where they drafted Strother. They drafted, why am I blinking on the other 2? Hunter Tyson, and they drafted Pickett. And the thought was they're vets. They may be able to produce, and they didn't play in the playoffs really at all. So they're also going to need to see that next season because do they have any free agents?
Is KCP a free agent at all?
I'm going to check that right now.
And I wonder how many years Gordon has left on his contract. I don't think he's a free agent.
I think he has a good amount. I think KCP, and I mean KCP was not fantastic. He was also
he hit some good like corner threes, but I mean he really didn't offer much outside of that. And back to your Conley point, I mean you really saw in Game 5 where Minnesota's offense was just lost when he wasn't playing.
Yeah, like Denver. There they are. Let's look. I'm looking at Basketball Reference. Jamal Murray is going to be up for an extension. Next year's his last year on his deal. No, they don't have any free agents. Reggie Jackson's a player option.
What's their money situation? Because Denver's an interesting.
I mean, they're at 190. They're at 190, but they have a lot of like rookie deals, and I think they have a couple picks this year. But they can make trades. KCP has a $15.4 million player option, which I would be surprised if he declined.
Yeah, I don't think he would decline that.
Excuse me.
But yeah,
I don't. They're paying Zeke Naji a lot of money to do nothing.
Yeah, Denver's an interesting spot for me because they're definitely not going to get worse, but I don't know how much they're going to improve this offseason. Like I mean, they're definitely trying to move to the bench, but I don't know. Like, unless you do Michael Porter, I don't know if you're going to.
Their hope is that Jalen Pickett, Hunter Tyson, and Strother step up, which they're all older for rookies, 22, 24, 23. So maybe that happens.
The West is only going to get better. Like, Anthony Edwards is only 22.
Dallas,
like Nuggets. I mean, people were kind of talking about this could be a dynasty. I don't necessarily think that may be the case.
I mean, it's so tough to be a flipping dynasty.
Well, no, of course. Like we've had, I think, 6 or 7 different champions.
I mean, Jamal Murray's awesome, and he's deserving of. He's an all-star player. He just steps up in the playoffs. But you have one all-star. I mean, on your team. I mean, look at the Warriors. They had 4 at a time, and it's so tough to be a dynasty. But they still should be a great team. And if their rookies step up next year, Peyton Watson, I think he was like playing a lot, then he'd stop playing.
Yeah, they really shortened the rotation.
The bench could develop.
Was really playing.
Yeah, the bench could be better with development, but maybe you change one of your top 5 if you trade Michael Porter, KCP with some picks for an upgrade. I don't know where that really is, but it's probably somewhere out there with. But also, they're paying Jokic in the 50s starting next year. Jamal Murray next year's 36, but then he's probably an extension to where he's in the 40s or 50s. So they're in an interesting spot. They're not in a bad spot, they got to adjust.
I'm saying like
the Timberwolves are being built to beat them.
And Timberwolves, I mean, I said it a couple weeks ago. I said if they beat the Nuggets, they're probably my pick to go to championship and possibly win it as well. The Timberwolves, you have Gobert, Karl Towns, and then you have Naz Reid coming off the bench. Like, they have a lot of options. Like, I think their bench is probably the deepest bench remaining. Well, you have Pacers, but
Indiana is deeper than.
But
Dallas Dallas isn't as deep, but their bench kind of goes deeper than you think, especially if they get Kleber back. They play. But I saw he was shooting around the other day, like 3 days ago, and they don't play till Wednesday. Maybe it could be a mid-series, but
yeah, Timberwolves, man, I really like what they're building, and Anthony Edwards. I mean, if he can lead the Timberwolves to the finals at 22,
it's not common.
He's probably gonna win multiple championships. Like if they win the whole thing this year, I think the league's in trouble. Now we just talk about dynasty.
I wouldn't say league's in dynasty, trouble.
But I mean he's only 22. Like he's gonna get better.
Yeah, I think the last guy to win that early was Wade.
Yeah,
he didn't.
Dwayne Wade was pretty. He was really. What year did you win? Oh,
third year. Yeah, it's his third year, and I mean,
He's like 24,
He
25.
didn't win again until they got
LeBron and Bosh.
I mean, the Timberwolves, they're free agents. McDaniel's extension starts next year. Alexander Walker, they got one more year. I bet he's going to make more money. Monte Morris, Kyle Anderson, Mike Conley's a free agent. That's the big one. And if they sign Mike Conley, you're just signing minimum guys because they're at 175 right now.
I think they may move some of these guys in a deal for like Darius Garland. I think you get younger. Like I think Cavs are going to trade Darius.
I don't even know what would you give the Cavs. I don't know what you give them.
I would really not want to part ways.
They're not taking any of your big men.
Well, I think if they ship off Jared Allen, but yeah, I don't think they would do that. I feel like
Naz Reid's Gosh,
I would like to keep Naz Reid. I don't think I would want to get rid of him.
No, but Naz Reid is the year after the next year is a player option. I assume he'd decline that.
Yeah, I don't know. I would try to get Darius Garland. Maybe that's a 3-team trade.
I don't think you can get Darius Garland. They don't have enough, unless you want to include Cat. But now that changes so much about your team, and Cat played well. And I don't think they're getting Darius Garland. They have no picks.
See, what would you be opposed if they traded like Gobert? And then you had
Cavs aren't taking Gobert.
No, I'm just saying in general.
I mean, I'm okay if you get something good, but
because he's good defensively, but on offensive end, like I know he made some crazy shots yesterday.
But I'd have to get something worthy. I just don't think you're getting anything that's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say that earlier. So I just don't know what his value is, especially in a league where they value shooting, and I mean, he just stays in. He takes up the lane, and he really doesn't do much offensively.
If they win the finals, I mean, he did a lot. He does a lot of offensive rebounding stuff that I don't think he gets credit for. Where he may not get the rebound, but he causes the offensive rebound. I mean, I'd keep him unless it falls apart against the Mavericks.
Anything else you want to add before we move on to the conference finals previews?
No.
All right. Well, let's go to the East because let's close out the show with the West because the West is a much better side. We talked a little bit about this series earlier with the Celtics and Pacers. I think we're both on the same page where I think the most we see this series going is 5 games. I don't, and I don't know if Pacers even win a game. I mean, they just came off a 7-game series against a physical Knicks team. Celtics have been resting for days now. Get time to prepare. Porzingis should be back mid-series. I think this probably be another anticlimactic series, especially because the Celtics, they have struggled at home during the postseason the last few years, but they're incredible on the road, and the Pacers are also bad on the road. So if the Celtics steal games on the road, I don't really see the Pacers winning any games.
Wouldn't it be funny if they win in 5 and they lose another game 2? It's just like, we just lose game 2.
Like game 2, the opposing team just shoots lights out. But I don't know. For me, it's actually I think now defensively, I'm not comparing these teams at all, but offensively, I think they have similar play styles.
Yeah, but okay, they do. But if you need to take someone to get a bucket in this series, number 1 is Tatum, number 2 is Brown. Then you have 3 and 4 in Halliburton and Siakam, whichever order you want. But then it's like Derek White, Drew Holiday, I guess then Miles Turner. But I don't know. I think, and who's guarding Brown? And I mean, Siakam's going to be on one of them. But like, you need Siakam.
I think Brown. You probably put Brown, Siakam, and I think if you shut
No, I'm talking about who on the Pacers guards Brown and Tatum. The Celtics can figure out their defense. Who guards Brown, Nesmith, and Siakam? I mean, Nesmith's game.
You probably put Nesmith. Nesmith played pretty good defense on Brunson, but it's a completely different matchup.
But I'd
probably put Nesmith on Brown. And you probably
Brown
put
and Brown will cook him. And Tatum's probably going to cook Siakam. Siakam's older. He's not the.
No, I don't think Pacers have a lot of answers for the Celtics.
I think Jalen Brown. I think Jalen Brown. At him, you're going to be throwing.
One of my predictions for a series is that I think Jalen Brown shuts down Siakam. I don't think Siakam's going to be that much of a big factor in the series. I really don't. Before OG got hurt, he was not shutting Siakam down, but he was.
Okay, but that's a game and a half. I don't know. I think Siakam just gets his 20. The only way for Pacers to
Oh, I
compete
don't.
is if
I don't think it's
Halliburton.
that. I don't think it's 20 points. I think he's going to be averaging like 14, 15 points this series, if even that. I
If
really
he
think he's
averages
very
14, 15, then this has no chance. I mean, the Pacers have faced two injury-riddled teams. And, like, they couldn't – when Chris Middleton was by himself, I mean, that's a forward. And we all know Brown and Tatum are much better than Chris Middleton, who, at points, Chris Middleton's really nice. But Chris Middleton was cooking them. He was cooking them by himself. Lillard was – Giannis was already out, and Lillard got hurt, and he was killing them. So I don't see them playing any defense. And like if you let like Derek White get going from three, Derek White has had a couple insane games. You get Derek White
well,
going, I don't know.
back
I don't
to
see
Siakam
much.
real quick. Like so he played 4 actually really good games against the Knicks, all 22, all 20 plus. But I mean, against Milwaukee at 13, 12, 19, 19, and then he had 14-game win against the Knicks. And then I
Yeah,
don't think he's going to be average. He's not getting to 20. I don't think he's going to be averaging 20 points a series.
I
Maybe
think
a
he's going to
game for
have to, though.
25
They're going to
something.
shoot a lot. You got to compete.
I think it's
I think
more
he's
of Halliburton's going to be the scorer in the series, and he's going to have a tough
No,
time.
I do too.
Put Drew
I do
Holiday
too,
or
but
Derek
yeah.
White on him. Like
Or Brown could go and guard
Pacers,
him at
I
moments.
think don't have enough. Like they don't play any defense, and you can send multiple defenders to both of those players. They still don't have enough answers offensively either. Like I would be shocked if they got 2 games out of the series.
No, yeah,
which is why I'm shocked the line is at -2 or at 2.5.
If Jarris Walker developed at all this year, which he doesn't play at all. Jarris Walker would be a nice, like, he'd be like, oh,
Mathurin. I mean, yeah, they still
there's no
have
Mathurin. Yeah, Mathurin would be very huge. I mean, yeah. And they're another team, the Pacers. I mean, we're assuming they're gonna lose the series, but if they compete, good for them. I still think they probably should make some move, even though they could look at it as like, we'll re-sign Siakam, we have Miles Turner, and then hopefully Walker develops. You'd hope it's Walker.
I think Paul George is going to be a popular name for multiple teams to get, but it would be cool to see him come back to Indiana, and they do need like a wing defender. I don't think it happens. I don't think he wants to be.
He pissed that fan base off.
No, I don't even think he wants to go back to his like small market. I think he wants to stay in a big market. So I don't really. They need a defender this offseason. They need to make a move for, and it doesn't even have to be like a superstar player, star player. It's a player that I think can play defense and give you some production on the offensive side. But I don't know what they do. But I don't even think the Celtics need Porzingis in this series to even win. Like
Miles Turner. I mean, he's basically a younger Al Horford.
That's what I'm saying. Like these teams play very similar, where both their big men don't really play in the post. I mean, they'll drive.
Horford
and all that.
Can play more in the post.
Okay, but they prefer, but they like to stay on the outside.
I mean, Turner's the better player, but like in this series, I can easily see Al Horford outplaying him. Al Horford's a vet. I mean, he killed it in Game 5, and so I think Celtics gonna smoothly walk. Probably they're gonna lose a game. They'll just do it. They just don't sweep teams. Lose a game. If I had to bet a game, it'd be Game 2. And then Pacers good team though, and maybe if Halliburton, he could have a superstar moment and really make this a series, but he would have. I think
that was the last series. I don't think he's gonna be able to do that. Like the Celtics also switch off of multiple players. Like I don't know what the Pacers are gonna do. This like he played really well this past series. I don't know if he's gonna be even close. Like I think him and Siakam could both get. He won't get shut down. He'll probably get marginalized. Siakam, I think, will get shut down.
There's a chance, yeah.
But yeah, I just don't see a series going really anywhere. Yeah, on the other side, on the Western Conference, much more enticing series. I am curious where you see this one going. What are your initial thoughts when you look at these two teams in the Western Conference Finals?
I mean, so Minnesota's obviously great, and a lot of focus has been on Minnesota. And then Dallas played a really tough-nosed OKC. Both teams coming off a series. I do think it's significant that Luka is back to Luka shooting efficiency-wise. He had 2 really good games shooting. I think that's huge. I know I don't take a lot of regular season stuff, but I was looking at the regular season matchup. Timberwolves won 3-1, but Luka only played 2 games and Kyrie played 1. In the one game Kyrie and Luka played, they won and each had 30 something. And I think Timberwolves were at full support there. But this is pre-trade. And I think it's a really even series. I think it's interesting that obviously the Timberwolves are bigger, but the Mavs have centers, Gafford and Lively. I mean, they're going to be able to be around the paint. Minnesota didn't really have to deal with shot blockers against Denver. Aaron Gordon had moments, but not really. Jokic has some IQ moments, but he just can't get up there. But now you have to deal with not just those two, but PJ Washington and Jones. I think it goes 7. I think it's a 7er. And I don't know if it's just because I placed a small bet on the Mavs to make the finals right after the trade deadline.
That's what it is.
But it's not. That's not what it is. I mean, Kyrie's playing like a. This is not the best Kyrie, but this is definitely the smartest Kyrie. I got Mavs in 7. I got Mavs in 7. Tough one. There's a chance personal bias is in it. There's a chance. I'm gonna say it's not in there at the moment. I got Mavs in 7.
I'm gonna say Timberwolves in 6 or 7. Like I said, if Timberwolves beat the Nuggets, I don't really like. You beat the defending champs. Mavs, they've been to conference finals, but they've never been to championship team level. I really like what Minnesota is doing, and I think similar to the Celtics Pacers series, and not to the same extent, but and not saying that they're going to shut either of these two players down, but you can switch multiple players onto Luka and Kyrie.
No, yeah.
Now I think what the matchup's good. I think it'll be Anthony Edwards on Kyrie and Jaden McDaniels on Luka for the most part. I think because Anthony Edwards, he could guard Luka.
I think Conley's just going to stay on Kyrie. I think Conley's just maybe not the end of games, but I think throughout games, Conley's a good defender. I think he'll stay on Kyrie.
If I'm Timberwolves, I'm playing Edwards and Jaden McDaniels. Now you can argue who on who. That's personally who I have, who I think they match up with Edwards on Kyrie and McDaniels on Luka. But I think if you can not shut down those two, but if you keep those guys from not going off and scoring a lot of points, I think Timberwolves have the edges. And I also think in the paint, I mean, I do like Gafford and Lively, but Karl-Anthony Towns and Gobert and then Naz Reid off the bench. I mean, I think the Wolves just have more answers than the Mavs.
Can I counteract your comment about containing Luka and Kyrie? How much did those two average last series?
I mean, I know it was pretty. I know, like was it games?
We just know how much did they average.
Well, I think Kyrie averaged maybe like I want to say 15 or 16 points, maybe 17 points.
I don't even. I'm gonna.
And Luka was probably 21, 22. I'm gonna say I'll say 41 points a game. They average.
Because remember before the series against OKC, you're like they have to average 50. They have to combine for at least 50 to win a game, and that was overall thought. They need to get 50 or 60.
That's another thing is OKC is a very young team. Like Timberwolves, I think, are more experienced and they have more answers.
But OKC was kind of picked to win that series. Let me find the averages. Averaged combined 40.4.
Oh, I was on sorry.
Barely 40 points. Yeah, 40.4. And they beat OKC.
I think Minnesota is.
What if they get it going? I think Minnesota's better than OKC, yes. But Luka.
I also think they're a completely different animal defensively. Like OKC is actually a very good defensive team, but I think Minnesota's completely different level.
But also, a lot of what makes Minnesota great is the size. And like against Jokic, you had all these guys. Rudy Gobert and Cat, their defense is not as important. And I know McDaniels and Edwards are great, but I always feel like Doncic does better against bigger guys. And it's the like 6'2", 6'3" guys who bother him, who are like the fiends. And McDaniel's a little taller. Luka is still the best player in this series to me.
So what if they put Edwards on him? What would your?
But then your best player, your best offensive player, is guarding their best offensive player. And Minnesota's offense, I think we saw at times really struggled. and then they get it going from their defense. But Denver's not a super strong defensive team. They can be pretty solid. I think the Mavericks are a much stronger defensive team. I think they've proven it. They played well at the end of regular season. Shea was the only guy giving them troubles. I don't know. I just like something about Dallas. I think Luka, I think, could be the best player in the world. I think Ant needs another year or two to be in that. And he had 2 games where he shot very efficiently, and he was playing very poorly in the playoffs shooting wise. And now he's had it's like 4 days rest until game 1. I think this is a Luka Doncic moment. I think he made the Western Conference a couple years ago. I'm banking my money on Luka. That's what I'm doing.
I know Luka's played really well, like very efficiently in the last 2 games. I think it could revert back to how he was playing before that. Because Minnesota's defense, I don't like. You can say what you want.
It was just him missing, and because he's that good, where it's just him missing, and he's been hurt, and now he gets that
he's probably still
bigger
hurt.
break.
I don't think he's ever going to be 100% during his playoffs.
He doesn't need to be 100%, but he's getting better, and I think that's.
I'm going to say Timberwolves. I'll say Timberwolves in. I'm going to say in 6. And if it goes 7, they're at home. I'll take them in 7 as well, if that's the case too. But I think.
They lost 2 games at home against Denver. I think the home court has really not been huge this playoffs, as we can see.
No, especially on the West side. OKC, I think, got a game at Dallas. Dallas won a game.
And OKC's could probably consider one of the better home courts. Knicks are court, and a young Pacers team shot the best ever in the playoffs.
Well, before that game though, that game 7, no team in that series had won a road game.
Yeah, but but still, game 7 is the game, and the Pacers didn't just win with the young, inexperienced team where the only players with, Miles Turner's played in some first rounds. I don't know if he's ever played in second round. McConnell, and then Siakam. We're their playoff experience, and their young guys stepped up. I don't think the home court's as big of a deal. I just don't think it is. No. I don't know why. But I remember Bill Simmons, Ryan Russillo saying this, I think last year I was listening to podcast, and they're talking about it. I think so. And look now, they're proving even more right. And I just think that's huge. Okay, another thing about Dallas, Jamal Murray was able to pick it up at the end. I am trusting Kyrie to be able to handle the defense of Minnesota more than Jamal Murray. Now,
I think my counter argument to that, and I know it's a very similar situation because you have Luka, but a lot of the attention was on Jokic. He doubled him in the post, and Jamal gets open shots. Now, I know it's similar to Luka because Luka gets a lot of attention too, but
yeah,
those kickouts or those passes are not coming from inside the post. Most of the time when Luka gets doubled, it's from the perimeter. So maybe the defense has more time to rotate to Kyrie. But yeah, I get your point. I just think that I think the styles are different because
it's completely different style.
Jokic was getting doubled or triple teamed, or all the attention. All 5 players were focused on Jokic. So yeah, Jamal was able.
But that's going to be very similar to Luka. I also think the supporting cast, I think they're pretty even with how Dallas has played. Derek Jones has had big.
But do we think Derek Jones is going to keep hitting these threes at this consistent?
Okay,
rate?
But he's hitting them. He's wide open. They've got confidence. He's hitting them. PJ Washington always had shown some not star-like, but he'd always shown the ability to be pretty good.
He was just on a bad team. That's why he really didn't even know anything about it.
And I think he's a much better defender than anyone thought. I think everyone's like, oh, he can play some defense. They're like, oh, he's a really good defender. He shot 47% from 3, and then he was bad game 6, but then came up huge. Lively is so good for a
Can I ask you a question real quick? I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's say Timberwolves played OKC last series. How many games do you think the Thunder would get off of Minnesota? I know styles are different, but I don't know. With their lack of size,
Chet would probably take Rudy outside.
I know, but they still
that's huge. Or Rudy would be on Giddey, and Cat would probably be on Chet.
I think
but Minnesota is so built to beat OKC.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I was trying to say is styles. play a huge part in a series. But
Like,
I was just trying because
like
I don't
Dallas
know if
has
OKC
some
would get a game
side.
off of them.
Yes, they probably would.
I would say one.
I don't know. I think Shea would have got a game. I think there's some really interesting stuff with OKC on Jalen Williams. Will he be good enough to be the second best player on a championship team? I think he will be, but that's
He's
why I
only
picked
20.
Dallas.
Is he 22, 21?
No, yeah. He should be. But that's why I picked Dallas. I didn't think he was ready. And he was pretty good game 6, I believe, but he wasn't fully ready. But I mean, yeah, that's different. This chat would get slaughtered.
Go ahead.
I think we know that Lively and Gafford, they're not better. They're still at a disadvantage, but they can compete down low. I think we know that. And then you get help from their taller wings.
I can't wait for that series. I know Celtics Pacers is tomorrow night. I'll watch that series. I definitely won't be as excited as I will be for the Western Conference Finals, but yeah. So you have Celtics, Mavs. I have Timberwolves, Celtics. I mean, I love that it's mostly pretty much new teams outside of Celtics. I mean, these are three teams.
Okay, here's a thought I had just for the NBA. I thought about this in general. Now, this is not picking who, but I think oddly enough, I think the best thing for the NBA is for the Celtics to win the title. I think because then you have like this. You have the Celtics, big brand, and they finally win after all this time. But then next year you go to the storylines, Luka or / Ant, whoever, they went to the finals, but now it's their turn to win it. I kind of feel like if Ant wins at 22, it takes away a little bit because you had LeBron had to build to it. You had Michael had to build to it. And if you want this to be your next guy, where he's not just the best player, but like the face of the league, I think you wouldn't mind him losing one of these series. It's a weird thought.
I was going to say, I think Anthony Edwards is way more marketable than anybody on the Celtics. That's why I think
I think it's unless Minnesota wins
especially if like an American player, because like a lot of these European guys.
But what I'm saying is I think it'd be like, don't you think if Patrick Mahomes would have won his first year starting the Super Bowl, the mystique would be a little less? I think it was good that he lost to Brady in that competitive.
Oh no! If you beat Brady and then you win Super Bowl your first year, I think
yes, but it just I think that.
And as a Chiefs fan, I was heartbroken.
I think it's good to as Chiefs fans, that's not what I'm talking about. It's good to have like this development, and so I think it'd be good for the NBA. The Celtics get a title with this team, because then also if they don't win, then the East is just super boring next year because the Celtics are still the best team, but you don't even trust them. I think the NBA should want the Celtics to win it all.
Or is it if Celtics win though, that's like Celtics and everybody else in the East for next year though?
But at least you trust the Celtics, and then you have all these dudes loading up in the West, is what I'm saying. And then I think in the East, like the team, but then in the East, it could be we're going after the Celtics, and it's not just we're going after this team who's never clutching up. It's we're going after champion. You have like the Magic can do something. I mean, I think Donovan Mitchell's good enough to be the best player on the team to beat the Celtics. This is kind of like a very off-topic rant, but I've thought about it. Just in general, the whole, I think they'd want the Celtics to win it all. You have the Magic, who I think Bucks would be rebuilding. Maybe Sixers go get Paul George. So just it's not picking, even though I would pick the Celtics to win the finals. I think the NBA would theoretically actually want the Celtics to win, even though I think that if you look at it like straightforward, you'd be like, no, you want Ant. But I think you want Celtics to win this year, and then you build Ant to then come back and face them again. Just a thought.
That's the thing with Minnesota, though. I don't know how, because Anthony Edwards, he's definitely a cornerstone player, but like outside of him, you don't really trust Cat. Gobert has his question marks. Like
Gobert's only on contract for 2 more years after this too.
I know.
So well, you're not stuck with him forever.
Timberwolves, I don't think, like outside of Anthony Edwards, you have question marks. Like I don't think it's a guarantee that they even get back to the Western Conference Finals next year. Or in the year, like this may be their best chance to win in the foreseeable.
Yeah, but then Anthony Edwards is not your Michael or LeBron if that's the case, anyways.
Well, yeah, it depends on how they, build.
And then you can also you get Cat, who I think has played well enough. He has played pretty well this playoffs, but he's just still a stupid moment.
He has, but there's stuff. There's like that throw in last night. It's like,
no, yeah, he's still
you
not
doing?
a high IQ basketball player, but you still get the moments of. But then you can have this thing like this cat next year take the full veteran jump to where he's just not an idiot on the court sometimes. I don't know. I just think I think it'd be good. It kind of also feel like this talent, like then Tatum could be more marketable too, if he wins a Finals MVP.
Yeah, but the thing is, like Celtics have won so many championships. I think Timberwolves would be like
yes,
I think
and sometimes it's good for. I think it's good for. I'm in a 1 year thing. For a couple months, the off season, Minnesota is better if they win. But I'm talking about like multiple years building the brand, built storylines more. I think there's more storylines for next year and the years following if the Celtics take down either the Mavs or the Timberwolves. I think that's more building.
Even with the Jordan comparisons, I just think Timberwolves winning would be much better for the league. And I think it would be much more entertaining as well. Jason Tatum, I think is a great player.
But here's another thing. Ant would win a title, and he's not even the best player in the league. He's close, but he's not there yet, and I think we know that. I think it'd be better if he when he wins the title, he's the best player in the league, and he takes that title.
Okay, but let's say it's Timberwolves Celtics. Wouldn't you say he's the best player in that series though?
Barely, but I could see Tatum just having his moment, and I think that'd be good for Tatum to have his moment because then you get a Tatum moment, and then you can have the Ant moment next year or in 2 years because Tatum wins, he's also not the best player in the league, but no one expects him to ever be the best player in the league. See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I think it just builds it longer.
And this is a conversation for another day, but I do wonder what the Celtics do if they come up short again this year and don't win a title.
I think they're at the point where you can't even think about it until they lose. That's my thought. You can't think about it until they lose. They've won a ton of games without one of their starters, who's very important. What would be the most? Okay, you're gonna say Minnesota. You think Minnesota's more entertaining? I guess I'd say Minnesota's more entertaining.
Personally, I find Minnesota more just because Anthony Edwards. I mean, there's the plays he makes sometimes. It's like you don't really get to see that, and
there's no one's more.
We weren't able to watch Jordan, and I hate comparing players like this early in their career, but this kind of feels like what Jordan kind of felt like when he was super young.
Mm-hmm.
Like the plays he makes, driving to the lane, he has that mentality. That's the thing with Jason Tatum. Sometimes his mentality is the main question mark I have.
No, yeah, but
Anthony Edwards, he wants to just go at you and take over game. You see that during games. Last night, he was struggling and he said, "Screw this! I'm just going to drive to the lane, and make a play."
But doesn't that looking at Jordan again? I know we weren't live, but don't you think, just thinking about it, it was better for the NBA that Jordan had to lose to the bad boys a couple times?
Well, yeah, it made storylines, but I don't.
Yes, and Jordan had a really bad. But that's what I'm saying about the Celtics winning.
But the Celtics don't have that personality.
They don't need to be the bad boy. They don't need to be. They don't need to be the bad boy.
I'm not saying that personality as in comparing to the bad boy. I'm saying the personality in terms of they don't really have a personality, in my opinion. When I watch them, they're really good. But
that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
Their best player is not emotional.
I don't think Tatum's shown emotion. What are you talking about?
He's showing emotion, but there's times he disappears in games.
Okay, yes, but again, that's not the point. It's about the Celtics, Logan. They're not the main. And where I say they win it all, they're not the main key in it. The key is Anthony Edwards. The Celtics are just a piece of it, where it won't be as impactful to if he's, let's say, Anthony Edwards, top 10 player all time. Just say that, where it's not going to be where the bad boy Pistons for Jordan, or the Spurs for LeBron, but maybe that could develop into the Nuggets or the Mavericks. Who knows? But I just think that I think the NBA long-term story stuff, Ant loses and then wins.
Not guaranteed. I mean, people are probably not.
I know it's not guaranteed, but if we're
talking about this is like Charles Barkley back in the day, let him lose.
But Charles Barkley wasn't the best player in the world. We're assuming that Ant's going to become the best player in the world.
Yeah, I to be honest, when I watch games, I don't really think about.
Well, no, I'm talking about.
I think about storylines, but when I
But I'm
watch
talking about
Minnesota,
from
that's
the
why I want
NBA's perspective, not from the NBA's perspective. And we're like, it's like you sort of have to see it through the trees.
I don't know. In my opinion, I think Anthony Edwards is way more marketable, and I don't really think a lot of people outside Boston like the Celtics.
But yeah,
So
you need
that's why.
someone who you don't like sometimes. No one liked the Warriors.
Well, I
The
don't.
Warriors were
I'm not
probably
saying I
too
don't
good.
like
We
the
got too
Celtics.
good.
I like the players on the Celtics. Like there's not really a guy that I dislike on the Celtics. I'm saying like just from a fan and market standpoint of like where they are. The only reason
Yes.
people hate the Celtics is because they're Celtics, not because of the players they have.
No, yeah. But that's why them winning, I think, is good. Because people don't like them.
Like I
And
wouldn't
then you
mind
had
seeing Celtics win, but I don't know. Just entertainment wise, I think Anthony Edwards is much more. You can build a better market. He's much more marketable.
well, yeah, but again, you can market him, but it's stages, is what I'm saying.
No, I get what you're saying. I don't know.
Because if let's say they beat the Celtics and he averages like 23 or 25, he averages 25 and like Cat's really big. I just think you lose the mystique instead if he wins his first title. Let's say next year against the Celtics and he averages 32 because he's even better.
So he has to average 30 to be
25. I don't know.
In a final series, averaging 25 is pretty impressive, especially for 22 years.
It's impressive, but it's not. You want him to be Jordan, Logan. It's Jordan, LeBron, Jordan.
Okay, yeah, and if you can do that,
those guys each average over 30 in their finals combined, and that's why I think it'd be better for him to get his first win when he averages like 30.
If he averages 25 at 22 in a final series, then he is on the path to be one of the greatest of all time if he's doing that at 22 and winning the finals.
Yeah, but it's just I don't think it builds as much. I think it doesn't build as much because then it's like I think it's better if the next Jordan LeBron wins the title when they're the best player in the world. And Ant is not the best player in the world yet.
No, I agree with that too. We're just going to disagree on this.
I mean, it's just
I see where you're coming from with storylines and all that, but yeah, I don't know.
It's good to have a villain. You don't really have a villain. And I don't know if the Celtics be a villain, but they'd be like, no one likes the Celtics, really.
Yeah. Well, that will do it for our episode today. We'll be back probably Wednesday or probably Thursday because Wednesday night's the Mavericks and Timberwolves game, so we won't be doing that. But we will be doing probably a reaction episode to the first games of these conference finals later in the week. But until then, make sure to subscribe below, like the video, and also follow us on Spotify.
Peace.